speak, and it's 6 o'clock for her. So thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And also, I was so glad when I got up this morning and there was not a tornado-like wind greeting me. I need to read something to start first. This meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. This meeting is open to the public and the public is welcome to attend in person. All persons wishing to attend the meeting by virtual means may do so via YouTube Sumter School District Board Meetings and Sumter School District's Facebook page. The vision: Sumter School District is committed to educating, empowering, and enriching the lives of all students to reach their full potential. Mission: Sumter School District is committed to providing safe, nurturing, and high-quality educational environment that supports diversity and equips students for local and global success. The committee members, Bonnie Disney, Chair of the Curriculum Instruction Assessment Committee, Sean Reagan, who is not with us at the moment, Denise Jones, and our subcommittee members, Dr. Oral Span, Sharon Teague in California today, and Shari Boozer. Thank you so much for attending. And we have many staff members. The call to order. This meeting is now called to order. And the introductory remarks. First of all, thank you for coming. Our 5 children are grown. They're already in the world and making very remarkable gains in their career fields. But I want to say that it's all because they had quality education. And we were here for 10 years and while they were in school, and I'm so thankful for all of the things that teachers did to help them. Now it's our turn to help children receive a quality education and to help our teachers. And that is why we're here with Curriculum Instruction Assessment, and thank you all. Is there any objections to the agenda if you see it in front of you? All right, with no objection, this agenda stands approved. Now, last week, I was so grateful that Dr. McLeod I asked her and she agreed, and I know she has plenty on her plate, but she gave us a summary of what we covered last week. And if you have that in front of you, just an overview, if you will look that over to sort of know where we are for today. Are there any questions regarding that summary? All right, and what about the next steps? Today we are at the next steps. So if we will, and the reason I'm scooting over is because I felt really bad that you would have to look through my hair and head to read it. So I moved over, and that's why we're so close together here. At this point, we're going to talk about, I'm not going to be doing most of the talking, but I do ask Dr. McLeod that at some times when you're presenting, if you would just let us ask questions. We may not know what questions to ask right now. So we're going to wait. And Sherry, thank you so much for your feedback. And I did share it with Dr. McLeod, and she said, absolutely, that's right on point.
Okay, good morning. First of all, update on the lesson plan feedback. We began that. Our last meeting last month was the day before we were out for spring break, so that was 10 days that we did not have any sub-meetings or task force meetings with the teachers. So the first task force to start taking a look at the lesson plan formats was the elementary math committee. So I'll ask Ms. Pate to come forward to share some of the feedback from that committee, and she'll also share, based on the committee feedback, some of the resources that are available that we need to ensure that our teachers are taking advantage of. Ms. Pate. This is Ms. Paik. She is the ELA math specialist for elementary schools.
Good morning. Okay, I did bring this, do I need to push this?
Yeah.
This says screen. Okay, I did take it before my elementary math task force. They did take some time to look over it. They were saying that as a daily lesson plan, they didn't see it being helpful. However, as a planning tool before a unit, they could see using the planning piece of it. However, when they got to looking at it, they realized that several of the things that are asked for is already provided through the curriculum guides and the unit plans that are already shared through the district. So with your permission, I would like to show you what's available. Is that okay? Come up there.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Fourth grade. We'll just, this is Schoology. All of the groups have their own page. And we're going to go into resources. Resources. And you'll see that every grade, every content area has its own folder. We're going to start at the scope and sequence. And this is a scope and sequence for the entire year for all 4 major content areas. And each one, if you'll scroll down, please, Sumter, I'm sorry, to the math. This right here. I'm pointing like you can see it. On the side, there you go, perfect. Right here, click on applying fractions and decimals. This is the quarter 4. That will take you to the curriculum unit for that. Yep, on the right there, perfect. It'll force you to make a copy. We do that so the teachers will have it on hand. They don't have to keep going back. And you'll see that this will be the unit for quarter 4, fractions and decimals. All of the standards are listed with all of the I can statements already there. Okay, and if you'll just scroll some.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I see the standard NSF.4. Is that how it's written with the State Department of Education?
It is.
Okay, that's a little different
That's
from
numbers
ELA.
and yes. It is, that's number sense with fractions.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Then right here under this, we have teacher clarity. For every standard, you'll see all the red stuff comes from the support documents from the State Department. So it'll explain exactly what the teachers are supposed to teach, exactly what it means by a unit fraction, what do they need to know prior to teaching this, all of that prerequisite knowledge. All of that is there, so it's listed for every standard. If you'll keep scrolling, pretty please. You can keep going. And then right here, keep going, you're right, you're fine. Here's more information on where they can go to unpack, and more information for the standards or standards explained. I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to show that to you. Keep scrolling a little bit. Right here, it tells you exactly what's needed, what they should be able to do at the end of the unit. Okay? And keep scrolling. We have all of their performance tasks, other assessment evidence that they can use, where it's found in the books or also in Mastery Connect. Keep scrolling. That's just our framework for guided math. And then you'll see there's possible mini lesson topics. There's how to add it into their daily routines and calendar connections. So all of this is already available to them. Go ahead and scroll. More activities. These are games and things they can use during centers. How to tie in some literature. All of that is there. And then keep scrolling. This is right here. Keep going, please. This is from the State Department's support documents, their tasks that they have, suggested activities for stations, and then how it's aligned in the textbook. Keep scrolling, please. It'll tell you down here exactly which chapters cover it, okay? And then how to add, what resources are needed, with manipulatives what will be needed. If you have to go virtual, how, what you can do for virtual learning if that should happen. Keep scrolling, pretty please. And then some ideas to tie it into science and social studies for math. Go ahead. And then on the bottom, how to differentiate. For differentiating with striving learners for math, it's very, very important that they understand the conceptual first. And so a lot of it's going to take it back to making sure they have using that concrete materials to understand conceptually what the skills are, okay? All right, can you go back into the, right there? Yes, please.
All right, and just another question.
Take your time.
The teacher is going to be using a textbook and not the Chromebook, is that correct?
Correct. I mean, there's ways for them to do it on the Chromebook. The math book is digitized, so they can go to dynamic learning through the Big Ideas website if need be. But yes, they all have access to their own workbooks and things. Okay, if you'll close that out, please, Shantae, and then click on this math resources folder. All of this is available, okay? This is our framework that is here with pacing guides. Right here, where it says explanation of standards for teacher clarity, if you'll click on this. This is provided for third, fourth, and fifth for every quarter, if you'll click on quarter 4. And again, I took everything from the support documents, the unpacking documents, everything, and thank you. Put it in one place, so it's all there. These videos, I don't know if it'll pull it up. Can you flip on that video real quick for just a minute? This is a fellow in Rock Hill who's taken every standard, and scroll up a little bit, please. There's the video that walks through exactly what's expected. It lays it out for him. When it says unit fractions, what denominators, and he's really good about explaining step by step. These are videos for the teachers, okay? Back up to the top for, right there. And close this out, and then go back here to math resources. There's tons you'll see, and scroll up. This has the standards, it has the state resources like the blueprint, the crosswalk documents, all of those things are there. Yep, right there, click on that, Big Ideas and Lesson Plans. This is from, click on the lesson plan one. This is from the book itself, the textbook. And then go to, we were just looking at 9, where's 9? If you can find, there it is, down here at the bottom. Because that's the chapter they would be on right now. And if you'll scroll up just a little bit, this is the opener, but if you'll scroll up just a little bit, like the next one has the lesson. It tells them exactly what their learning targets are, their success criteria, if there's any vocabulary, what's needed. And then you'll see the warm up, the dig in, we talk about that's the opening, that's the meat, that's where the, with the teacher's teaching with the manipulatives and putting the learning in the kids' hands. Scroll up a little bit, and it explains again exactly what should be happening. It gives them some ideas, some examples. Scroll up. This model in real life is where the problem solving happens, okay? And then here's more if you want to go deeper, and that's in the Big Ideas website. It tells exactly where the enrichment activities are, or if they need more help. All of that is accessible through either the books that they have or through the website itself.
Would it be advantageous to the teacher just to print off that, maybe at home?
They can, but I don't want to bring right now.
Right.
But I'm happy to sit down with you anytime. The Big Ideas textbook site has all of this available for them, so they don't even have to carry a book home. They can open it right at home on the computer and have access to all of this.
Right. Okay, the next big question. Let's say I'm a brand new teacher, or I'm a teacher brought from Romania, or I'm just wherever, Texas, wherever. Will I know how to do this?
We do have training at the beginning for new teachers. They go through how to access all of the different, how to get to your materials. We also rely a lot on the instructional coaches at each school to help with that support, but we're always available as well. But there's training for that.
Even the teachers who've been teaching for a while, maybe they haven't been using this?
At the beginning of every year, we have our beginning of year PDs, and this is something that we go through, how to access it, if any changes have been made to the unit plans or anything like that, all of that's there. Other questions? So I just wanted you, it's there.
This elementary this is elementary math.
This is elementary math, but if you go back to the SSD one again, please, Shantae, you'll see, and then hit the resources at the beginning. That'll work. You'll see there's ELA, science has resources in there. If you'll scroll up, social studies, health, PE, you have your grading, report card, exact path, technology resources, that's there. This is for ELA, for math. And then ELA has a similar, their unit plans she's very detailed. So it's there.
All right, another question. Is this doable for a substitute? I know that we are short teachers. That's everybody in the United States is.
Wait, what part? Being able to access it, or?
All of that. And walk into the classroom and say, here's your class.
Yes, I feel like it is, especially with the online, because a lot of teachers like to pull up the textbook and use it on the Promethean board to walk through the lessons and whatnot. So as long as they can have access to it, it's right there, it's spelled out. The teacher's edition spells it out, say this, do this, so that they should be able to.
And you're not responsible for middle school math?
I'm not, that's far less.
All right. Any
Okay.
questions?
Any other questions? Thank you for letting me share that. Thank you, Sumter.
And we will continue this process with our different task force groups at the different grade spans. But as you see, there's so much available. And the goal is to make sure that all of our teachers are actually utilizing what's available, because it is, it's standards-based, it has been aligned, the resources are aligned to the standards, and it gives them a great amount of information and actually some professional development within it. If you're not sure, there's videos linked, this is what it should look like, and things like that. So we put a lot of effort into that, and it is always a living, breathing set of documents as our task force groups work through the instruction, and we get feedback to ensure that we do not have any gaps as far as resources that are needed. So that is ongoing with all of our groups. And as Ms. Pate stated, you have that access for each grade level, all content areas. Are there any other questions with the work that we're doing on the lesson plans?
Oh, I'm sorry, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
We know math standards will be changing. Right now, we're still using what's printed there,
Correct. The math standards were just released yesterday.
right?
They're still in the process of getting feedback, and then the committee will have to go back and look at the feedback and see if anything needs to be changed. So we're still 2 years out before having to implement new standards.
So will Schoology update?
We'll do the updates.
Oh, we'll do the
We do
update.
that, that's.
Okay, I see.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, actually the memo about the public review of the math standards came out yesterday afternoon. I forwarded it to our department, and sometime within the night, I noticed that it had been loaded in all of the Schoology groups so that the teachers would be aware and could give feedback on those. So sometime during the night, Ms. Pate and Ms. King were uploading that information for all of the math groups. So we always encourage feedback from our teachers. We want our voice to be heard with the State Department. We always have people that are participating in these groups. In fact, I think we have a social studies, someone working on the social studies. I just saw a nomination from one of the high school social studies teachers that will be participating. And when they say, just nominate one or two, I nominate as many as possible. Because when some other districts don't participate, we also get to take those slots so that our voice is heard, what we feel our students need across the state. We also do the same thing with the assessment overviews.
All right, we were talking about lesson plans. So what I am thinking is they don't need to turn in lesson plans unless they just need to know what they're covering for that week or that day. How does that tie into our handwritten lesson plans? How does that change what we talked about last week for math, elementary math?
If I may,
Sure.
all of that, those resources are there for them. That is, I don't want to say generic, it's general. You know, as a teacher, you know your students, you know what's needed, you know where they're at, so you would be able to go in and pick and choose what's needed, so then
I
you
see.
would write handwritten lesson plans
I
for
see.
yourself as
I
a
see.
teacher
I
to
see.
be able to cover
I
the
see.
content that you need to cover for
And-
that, for your class.
If you will remind me what we were saying then, are we saying that they like what you presented last month? Are they saying that will fit the bill using this? Or are they saying we need to reinvent their lesson plan format?
What they
Why
were
don't you
saying was
repeat your
the-
question? I lost you for just a second there.
I'm sorry.
Sure. Last week, Dr. McLeod shared with us a lesson plan format that looked like it would be just perfect for our needs, and a group has looked at it. Now that that we've just seen the math resources, my question is, would that lesson plan format we looked at last month, would that fit the needs for the math, the math teachers in elementary school?
The first part with the planning document on it is kind of redundant because the information is already there. It does give them a place to pull it if they need it, but it's, like I said, it's already there. As far as the rest of the rest of that part of the lesson plan, they don't mind filling that part out. However, it doesn't necessarily fit the guided math frame, the way guided math is written and should be taught. They suggested having spots to put small group and what they're doing with their small groups. So it could be tweaked as far as the bottom part of it. The top part of it wasn't necessarily needed, is what they felt.
And are we okay with having maybe elementary math lesson plan formats tailored for them?
I think that's the purpose. It's for the teachers, to help the teachers when they're planning and using specific strategies or resources for the variety of student levels that they have within their classrooms. So we want it to be something that's going to be useful for them and not cumbersome. So I would be very much in favor of them working on something that's easy for them to use and arranges the information the way they need it.
And does it qualify? Remember, the teacher forum, one of their complaints was that some of them were too, let's put it in a big word, laborious, took too much time. So, but this one, if we tailor it to the math needs, is it still rather quick? Is it still rather easy to knock it out within 30 minutes?
It would be, it
Okay.
would be. If
Any other
using the
questions?
resources that
Sure.
they have, pulling, it would be, I think.
Sure. Any other questions? Dr. Span? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pate. And as I said, our team will continue to work with their task force groups on getting additional feedback on lesson plans at the different levels and what the needs are of the teachers.
And I failed to ask one other question. Are the principals going to be able to use that with the Elliott that you're going to talk about later?
Absolutely, yes. And speaking of the Elliott, we wanted to give you the Cognia Connection overview. Cognia is the name of the company now for accreditation purposes. Some of you who have been around may have remembered it as Advanced Ed, or if you've been around even longer than that, it was SACS. It's the same type of process though. And I have with me Jamie Lassard. She is the professional development specialist, and she is helping me lead the work on our Cognia accreditation. And our focus is continuous improvement. So once the accreditation process is finished, the continuous improvement that's connected to it is never finished. We can always continue to improve. So Ms. Lassard, if you go ahead.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about the work that we have been doing with the upcoming Cognia accreditation. I know that if I ask you to think back to 2020 and 2021, we really don't want to go back that far, but it's important that I bring those years up because that is when we were given notification that we would be going through this accreditation through Cognia, also known as Advanced Ed, for next school year, the 2023-2024 school. So in 2018, Cognia merged with Advanced Ed and they took on the new name Cognia. So every time we mention Cognia accreditation, it's the same process and assurances and checklists that were involved with the Advanced Ed accreditation. In 2018, as I said, that's when they merged together. They took on a new name, just for the record, in case you're interested. Cognito is a Latin term that means knowledge, and so that's where that name came from. But as we learned of the upcoming accreditation, we knew that there was going to be some changes, because anytime you have a merger, there's some changes that are made. So the new Cognia standards were born, and they said that they would go into effect July 1st of 2021. So as the Office of Academics team, we got together and we realized we needed to do some research. So we started our research in determining what those new standards looked like. The biggest difference that we found with Advanced Ed and Cognia included an extra standard or an extra key characteristic. So now Cognia has 4 key standards or characteristics that we have to show continuous improvement for the next 5 years in. Those are the culture of learning, leadership for learning, the engagement of learning, and growth in learning. Another difference between Advanced Ed and the Cognia accreditation process, there will no longer be visitation from the Cognia or Advanced team into our individual buildings. They will not come in and do interviews with teachers and discussion panels, but instead we will look as a district, as a whole system or institution. So the purpose, again, as Dr. McLeod mentioned, is continuous improvement practices. And since Advanced Ed, again, we knew that the Elliott tool, the student observation tool, would probably still be used. It's proven to be effective in continuous improvement practices. So we knew we had some data to go off of from the past 7 years. We normally go through accreditation every 5 years, but because of COVID, we were given an extension. So that is why next year is our accreditation year. And because we knew that we had data living in our system of Cognia or Advanced Ed, we needed to start where we were, and we needed to pull that data and see what we needed to improve for the next 5 years. So we pulled that data from the Elliott, and just for the record, this is a learner-centric classroom observation tool. It looks at the student outcomes and not what the teacher is doing, but what the student is doing. There are 7 learning environments that the Elliott tool is used to observe. Those are equitable learning, high expectations, the supportive learning environment, active learning, progress monitoring, and all of these will sound very familiar because there is a crosswalk with teacher evaluation of the 4.0 South Carolina rubric. But again, this is not a teacher evaluation or even a teacher observation. It's very learner-centered. And again, it's at the heart of what matters, and that's the student. So after we pulled the data that we had from the previous 7 years, we had 2,200 or more observations to go off of. We did not drill down into individual schools. We wanted to focus as our district as a whole. So what we did is we looked at those 7 learning environments, and we looked at each of those, and we looked at the data, and we determined that the active learning environment was our weakest area. So we knew that some work needed to be done. So again, as the Office of Academics, where active learning truly starts, we came up with a theme for our professional learning for the year. We came up with the theme of Spark, Ignite, and Engage. Again, this was right after COVID, so we wanted to spark some new ideas. Our teachers were tired, our students were tired, the district office was tired. We needed to spark some new ideas, bring back the fun in teaching and in learning. So that's where Spark came in. Then we wanted to ignite, or in some cases, reignite passion for teaching. We know that when we have happy teachers, we're going to have happy students. So that's where the Ignite came in. And then finally, the engage piece, and that is, again, the number one focus, the student. So we want to engage our students. So was born Spark, Ignite, Engage, and we stuck with that theme last year, this year, and then moving forward for the 2023-2024 school year. With that theme came a lot of discussion with our office and our team as far as how we were going to present this theme for professional learning with our teachers. So we knew that we needed to first let the administrators of the buildings know what we were up to. So at the district leadership retreat in July of 2021, we offered the leadership not just an opportunity to hear about what we were going to do with the active learning strategies, but the purpose and the intentionality of our planning. And that was, we needed to come up with strategies that would be low prep but high impact, which means that we don't want to add work to teachers' plates. They work extremely hard. So we wanted to do some active learning strategies, again, that we could showcase to our principals, but not just tell them about it, but actually make them participate with us and learn those strategies as well. And that work is still continued to even just last month at our meeting. So after we met with the leadership team and explained to them the Elliott data and showed them that active learning was our weakest area, it wasn't completely weak, it was just our weakest. Cognia tells us to start where we are and use the data that we have. So we presented that to the leadership. Then we came back as a department and we looked at 4 strategies, 4 active learning strategies that we were going to implement into the professional learning at the beginning of the year for our teachers. We didn't want to teach active learning strategies in isolation because, again, that's not what learning is about. We wanted to teach it in context. So while the teachers were learning about their new content standards, we were embedding learning activities that were true and tried and proven active learning. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a few moments. So in September of 2021, we sent a team of 9 district office staff members to the Impact Cognia Conference. And included in this Impact Conference, it was in Charlotte. It was the North Carolina and South Carolina region. It was actually a conference set up for school districts going through accreditation this school year, but we tried to be proactive instead of reactive. We wanted to get as much information as possible. So we took that team of 9 people with us. We learned all that we could in those 2 packed days of learning. And we came back and we said, we have some work to do. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are new Cognia standards, and they added in that engagement of learning piece. And so we knew that we needed to start with that first. And because part of the engagement of learning goes with our Elliott observation tool, that was going to be our focus for this school year to drive our work for our year of accreditation. So we also realized from attending the conference that we have a lot of new instructional coaches in our building, some that are straight out of the classroom, some that have been with us for a while, some that transferred from a different school district, and we haven't offered instructional coaching professional learning in quite a few years. So we knew that that was a need because there's only a few of us and a lot of teachers to train. So we needed to activate that train the trainer model, and who better to do it than the instructional coaches that have already built that rapport with the teachers that they trust, and we're building the capacity of them. So we decided that we wanted to meet with our instructional coaches from our school level buildings once a month. And we could call it a general instructional coaches meeting, but we took it a step further. We didn't want this to be a sit and get. We wanted them to truly experience active learning, a time for community, a time to engage together in the work. So with that came meaningful conversations and coaching. And so that is kind of the terms that we stuck to every month. There is a document that I shared with Ms. Scott, if you will pull up. It's the active coach. And I'm also going to give everyone a copy of this postcard that we created. It has a QR, not that one, I'm sorry, the next one, that one. This is a document that we created for principals when we were showcasing the work of our instructional coaches. I'm going to give you a copy of this postcard that has a QR code and the link. So if you don't know what questions to ask right now, please feel free to view it and write all over it. You can print it and then bring it back and we can have further discussion. But I wanted to highlight some of the things that we're doing with the instructional coaches that we're very, very proud of. And in fact, it's been one of our highlights every month to meet with them and to hear what's happening in their buildings. So again, realizing that we had the need for these meetings of professional learning, we started meeting together. We told them all about the Cognia accreditation. We told them that our focus for the year, being proactive, was going to be on active learning. We started looking at what does true coaching mean and how do we add that into active learning. And so we started with a book study, and I know some people think, oh, a book study is kind of boring, but this was not your ordinary book study. What we did was Jim Knight's Definitive Guide to Instructional Coaching, and we didn't just take it chapter by chapter, but what we did is we put it in context with what we're already doing and the work that still needs to be done. So all of the specifics are linked in the document that I'm going to share with you, but a couple of things just to highlight was coaching cycles, talking to our coaches about doing complete coaching cycles with the teachers that need it most. We talked about establishing some framework for core coaching competencies. And what does that mean when we have a partnership principle with the teachers that we work with? It's establishing that relationship that's dialogical, which means that they have just as much say in their professional learning as we do. Again, we are working with the coaches, and it has turned into the biggest highlight because they are doing a lot of work, not just in their buildings, but for the district and for our accreditation. So through this book study, I told you that we focused on Jim Knight's ideas of, his definitive guide to what is coaching and what isn't. There was also a huge component of this book study that has really taken off and that I'm very proud to showcase to you today. One of them is building a playbook. Building a playbook. Well, again, we are wanting to take off with our theme of Spark, Ignite, Engage. So we developed a toolkit, as we're calling it, on active learning strategies that can be applied immediately in a classroom. So with that being said, we brought to the leadership, that would be your assistant principals and principals, we brought forward the idea that we're building this toolkit to showcase what active learning should look, sound, and feel like in a classroom. We told them all about the work with coaching cycles and making sure that our teachers are aware of what instructional coaching should look like and how we're there to support. And then we decided that we would start building this toolkit to really use the year of our accreditation. So this year was a trial year for them to take bits and pieces of a toolkit that we've created, take it back to their school buildings, attempt to use it with their teachers, get feedback, come back together, and build something that would be useful for our school district as a whole. Not just for accreditation, but for forever, because active learning is important. So after we explained all of that to our leaders of our buildings and instructional coaches, which is part of that leadership team, we invited everyone to become certified in our Elliott observation tool. We felt that this was very important, that everyone is seeing the same thing. Unfortunately, not everyone was certified using the Elliott tool because it was kind of optional at that point. Moving forward, this is not an optional tool for observations of students. It's going to be used as one of our key components to drive that continuous cycle of improvement with our accreditation for that key characteristic standard 3, which is the engagement of learning. And so we had everyone do the asynchronous training online through Cognia, and we have 100% of our leaders that are trained and certified in Elliott, but we wanted to take it a step further because we can't stop with a checkbox and say we're done, we learned. No, this is a continuous process. So we invited Cognia to come in and do an Elliott calibration training with our leadership teams of our buildings. We invited them to come in and tell us more details about looking at the Elliott observation. Remember, student observation. So we wanted our leadership to know that it's not something that should be done in isolation, but anytime you're in a classroom, you should be observing students and their reaction. Is it equitable? Is it, are there high expectations? So all of the components of Elliott, we wanted to make sure that we were all seeing the same thing. So we formed teams of 5 to 6 people. We had wonderful schools that told us that we could come in and do these observations. We met with Cognia. They came in. They walked through with us through these classrooms. Everybody was looking at the same thing. We came back and we discussed and we had conversation. And so we talked about the importance of collaboration as a leadership team. That one AP, for example, or assistant principal is not going in to do an observation of students and then it be what the teacher thinks that is an observation of them. This should be a body of data that's collected over a time period, like we used at the beginning to decide where our strengths were as a district. So again, this is just a small snapshot into the classroom in a 20-minute observation. So we needed to make that clear, so that is why we brought Cognia back in. For our leadership retreat this summer, they are coming back in again, and we are going to look at analyzing and looking deep into the data that we've been collecting using the Elliott tool to drive our standard for the accreditation year. So I'd like to show you, if that's okay, what the toolkit looks like, because the toolkit that the instructional coaches have worked on supports everything that we're doing in the Office of Academics as well as the Cognia accreditation. And we are so very, very proud. This is a draft mode. This is not the final version, so it has not been released to our assistant principals or principals yet. We're looking at it as, again, a whole body of leadership. So this is an instructional leadership page, but it's designed and created by your instructional coaches of your building. So if I may, can I come up and
Please
do
do.
this? So as I mentioned, we have been meeting with the coaches monthly for professional learning, and through that time that we've been meeting with them, and on the document shared earlier, you have access to all the agendas with all the activities and everything. So just kind of a little back note on that. So this is a Google site. Again, we're a Google district, so now why not use what we have? We started off with wanting to showcase the purpose or the intentionality of why we developed this toolkit.
Is it Google Classroom?
This is Google Sites. This is a website
Okay,
platform that
all
we
right.
can build.
Okay.
And this is, Google Sites is what our district platform is on too. So again, here is our title, the Spark, Ignite, Engage. We have the purpose, the intentional planning and purpose of working with instructional coaches. Again, what is this resource for? Again, you guys will have access to this. This is still in draft mode. I just kind of want to go through it pretty quickly. But what is the purpose of building our toolkit? Again, our book study, the Definitive Guide to Instructional Coaching, talks about building a playlist. We're calling it a toolkit because we kind of tweaked it to meet our needs. And then, of course, we have what is my role as an instructional coach. We wanted to make sure that that all building level administrators are using the coaches for the capacity of building that teacher capacity, and not for an additional, not an additional administrator in the building. So we listed some of the things that our coaches said that they were responsible for, and again, this is just our front and center page to talk about our purpose. We spent a lot of time with this book, but we also did the coaching habits about building effective communication skills so that we have that dialogical conversation with the teachers. So we focused on these 2 books, so I added in a little YouTube video in case you're interested in learning a little bit more about Jim Knight and his idea. And then, of course, that very first page, we just finished it up with a quote that we like. But what I'd like to do right now is, because I believe in giving credit where credit is due, our instructional coaches are phenomenal, and they're working extremely hard in our buildings. And so we wanted to dedicate a page to meet our team. So Monica Pate, Christy Carnes, and I were the facilitators of instruction for the coaches. So this is kind of like what our role is and how we work, together. And then this is a list of all of our toolkit contributors, which means that every one of them attended all of our meetings. We had such high attendance all the time. And we wanted to highlight the school that they are from and their role. So this is just, we have a few that haven't turned in pictures yet, so bear with me. We just put a placeholder there for now, but these are our team members who put in many, many, many hours of hard work developing the toolkit that we're gonna share with you. So this is just a page on Meet Our Team. I also like to highlight the work that we're doing in the moment, so I have a carousel at the bottom with pictures of us actually doing the work. And again, this website is for instructional coaches and the leaderships in the building, which means that this is not for public, this is just as a tool for them. So this is like a scrapbook as well to kind of highlight what we've done. I mentioned the core coaching competencies and the purpose behind why we are instructional coaches. So these are the competencies that we focused on, especially relationship building, teamwork, building class community, being reflective in our practice. Every time we met, we had time for reflecting, and that doesn't include just writing in a journal. Today I'm happy because it really focuses on the work that we're doing. We talked about how to facilitate coaching conversations, how to, again, through our other book study, building communication skills, and then of course change facilitation and how can we get teachers on board with our big plans, and of course deepening our knowledge-based development. We also spent a lot of time trying to build that sense of community with our coaches, and the reason for that again is because we haven't had a lot of time to meet, not just because of COVID, but we haven't offered that training in our district in a while. So we focused on relationship building as a little community so that they would reach out to each other and be able to communicate and get ideas. So we spent a lot of time on why relationships matter, not just coach to coach, but coach to teacher, and most importantly, teacher to student. So this was, again, just information. We did lots of little silly things for all grade levels, but again, you guys will be able to see it in detail. All of these are clickable links that would take the coach straight to the activity that they could, apply immediately with their staff, or that they could share with teachers in order for the teachers to do it in their classrooms. Part of being a coach is using a coaching cycle. So where do we start when we're working with teachers? Again, sparking the conversations and seeing what's important to them, igniting their ideas by giving them things that they could use that are tried and true. I mentioned that low prep and high impact strategies. So that's where that would come in, and then engaging in the work, whether the coach is going in to support the teacher, co-teaching, or whatever that might look like in that individual school. So again, these are just some notes and highlights of things that we talked about, again, as a reminder to the coach when they're using this, that instead of doing SMART goals, as many of us have done in the past, Jim Knight recommends that when we're working with teachers, that we actually look at writing a peers goal. And a peers goal is very much about the student. And again, Cognia accreditation, the Elliott observation, the student is our number one. So we're writing peers goals, and peers are just powerful and easy. That means they're clear and concise, that they're reachable. We want to make sure that they're attainable. That's that A in there. And then we have that they're all student focused. So what is the ultimate goal in student achievement? And then finally over here, we have all of our Elliott resources. And with the Elliott resource, we have the Cognia key standards. So we all have a common language that we've developed in our district. So when we say differentiation, we all know what differentiation is and isn't. Whenever we say rigor in the classroom, we have, again, definitions, and Cognia has definitions as well. And so with that, we wanted to make sure that we all had the same vision with each of the components of the Elliott. So these are one-pagers that principals, assistant principals, instructional coaches, the whole leadership team can print out and have and use as a focus when they're meeting with their staff. So all of these are one-pagers. And then the coaches, yesterday we met via Google Meet, and we wanted to do some feedback for them to give us some suggestions. And one of the suggestions was for us to add in videos that support each of the learning environments. So we went in yesterday and added all of the learning environment samples from Cognia. And then we have, with that, it'll let me, can you click on more for me? On the far right, on more, for some reason it won't let me. Yes, please. Okay, go down to instructional strategies. There we go. All right, so because We talked about the toolkit and it being active learning from the very beginning that I mentioned. This is where it really comes to life. This is all the work that the instructional coaches have been doing. And we are so proud of this. Again, low prep, high impact. We don't need to add anything extra. We wanted to focus on some strategies. We focused on 4 at the beginning of this school year, but we've added some since to take forward next year. And we're hoping to see all of this in the classrooms. So these are all one-page documents of true active learning strategies that can be applied from K to 12. And so we've done a lot of research on this. And I'm not going to make everybody do this, but I'm a very kinesthetic person. I like to do movements when I'm teaching. And so one of the things that we talked about with our administrative team is we made them actually act these out. I won't make you guys do it with me, but positive interdependence is like with one brain, I'm good, but when you give me a partner, I'm going to be even better. So positive interdependence is part of an active learning strategy, but it can't be in isolation. You got to have individual accountability, which means that I got to think for myself before I'm able to share with you. And then you have to have that equal participation, and I do like this for no student is equal or greater than the other. There's got to be equal participation in an active learning strategy. And then there's simultaneous interaction. I got to give to get. And that's where collaboration and cooperative learning comes in. So every single one of these activities up here have a piece of the pie. And the reason that you see the images over here is if you have a true active learning strategy, you won't have a hog or a log in the group. You won't have one student taking over and saying, I'll do the work, or the log saying, I'm not going to do anything and let myself get an A. You'll have a cog, which is a cohesive, organized group together. So all of these fit into the pie. So this was us just having a really good time while we were introducing and practicing with the active learning strategies so that they could take them back to their schools and manage, model, and explain them, not just give them a piece of paper and say, go try this with your students. We want our coaches to be involved in the process because, again, peers goals. And I think I'm just about done. One more. Sorry. Go to more again. Go to video resource. One of the things that we've had conversation with many teachers and leadership was about finding resources that would reflect our district. And one of the things that we talked about was building a resource library with those 10 active learning strategies so that when you have a reluctant teacher say, I can't do that with my students, you can say, well, did you show them the video resource library of our teachers and our district and our students in all the different grade levels? So we want to build that capacity of teachers. That's what instructional coaching is about. So on this page, we don't have a lot right now for examples, but we have some samples of the strategies being utilized by the teachers and the students in the classroom, and we're going to keep adding to this and growing our district resource library for the coaches to be able to pull up and say, look how this teacher did this. You know, look at the students. Let's look at what this would look like in an Elliott observation of what the students are actually doing. So we are going to continue to add, but we're also incorporating the name of the school so that there's a fun, friendly competition. For example, Wilder has submitted 2. So kudos to Wilder, but I know that there's also other schools that are doing these things. So the more they give us, the more we'll put, and we'll keep highlighting the schools. Can you go down one more? To reward teachers, teacher badging, to reward teachers for their efforts and their willingness to share. Teachers are often reluctant to share what they're doing in their classroom. We wanted to implement a badging. This again is in first stages. These are just some ideas that need a lot more conversation. But we were thinking of badging our teachers for letting us come in and do a short video of their students doing the active learning strategy so we can build that library. So we were focused on giving them a badge, a digital badge, which is very popular, and give them a certificate, post it outside their door, highlight them in a monthly newsletter, just kind of, again, build our teachers up. Okay? Again, that's planning stages, not necessarily a thing yet. Put a more for me. Common language. Common language was one of the things that Cognia keeps telling us that we have to have as a whole district. We need to be able to define differentiation, rigor, relevance, you know, all of these key terms that we hear in education all the time. So we wanted to dedicate an entire page to common language. and all the common language from Cognia key terms and our teaching and learning framework all match together so that we're all speaking the same thing. And so that is what this page is dedicated to, the purpose of why we should be speaking a common language for consistency and collaboration. What does professional development look, sound, and feel like? So we put those important ones that we felt were very important that kept coming up in the Cognia accreditation, we put those all in the same page. All right, one more. Useful for coaches. This is a page just dedicated for coaches to share information that's working for them. So for example, Alyssa Black from Millwood Elementary, she was the first to share. She told us about an SEL check that she does with her teachers at the beginning of the year. And she just had, she was very excited about it. And I thought, this is great. These are the things that could be shared, you know, with other coaches. So tell me a little bit about it. And of course, I wanted to highlight her. And then I wanted to have her give me a picture so that we can see what it really looks like in action. So as our instructional coaches are doing things in their building, they're going to be able to have a place to go to share and showcase what's working for them. So here is Miss Massey from Cherry Bell, and she does little personalized notes that she leaves on the desk for the teachers. So just some things that they can go to. And I promise I'm almost done. Resources. This is again just a page about some of the work that we've done, where our research has come from, the resources that you can go back and watch. This is where all of our insight comes from, some additional books on professional learning with coaches, and some digital resources, again, practicing reflection, all of the things. So this is in progress. It is not out for the coaches or the leadership team yet. This is a work in progress, and it will continue to be continuous process of improvement. So we will give you guys access to it just to kind of view and give us feedback, because again, we want to learn and grow together. So that is the toolkit that I mentioned that the coaches have been working on all year. So we're very proud of that. Thank you. All right.
Now you see why I asked Ms. Lassard to present the work. I couldn't have been nearly as engaging and excited. She gets very excited about the work that we're doing to build capacity with our school leaders. So are there any questions as far as our work thus far with Artcognia?
If you don't mind, I do. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I think, I remember the Sachs days at Sumter High School. And I remember it was as if we had a constant fire under our feet, being being reminded how important the results of Sachs was. Would you explain how important it is, what happens if and I'm assuming you will get scores. Would you explain what happens should things not look so good?
Sure. So that's one thing I'm actually not worried about, because we have a fantastic team of Cognia directors that are working with us continuously. So we're not going to be left out in the cold by ourselves, that we constantly meet with them and tell them about the work. And I do have to say, if you're bringing that up, we're very excited to announce that our school district has been invited to present at the conference this September because of the work that we're already doing. So I do not foresee an issue with not being accredited.
Okay, I thank you for that. All right, the other thing is, I love hearing about the instructional coaches, but we have 14,000 plus students. How many instructional coaches do we have? Don't ask that, right?
About 35, about 35 coaches.
So they're very important to our system. Would it be nice if we had more?
Absolutely.
And in fact, there is a need at the secondary level.
That was my next question, because I understand most of these instructional coaches are elementary, middle. And I was a high school teacher. I know that we did not like being told what to do. However, the right person could be very helpful. I have more questions, but I don't want to hog it. Any questions from the group?
I have a question. Thank you, Jamie. You did an excellent job presenting, and coaching is dear to my heart, so I am very grateful to see that a coaching cycle is in place. I just have two clarifying questions. You mentioned about the coaches within the building and that the leaders are trained. I want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly. In Elliott, they're certified. Is that clear?
That's correct.
So did the leaders, the principals, assistant principals, did they also receive instructional coaching? Are they going through some type of coaching cycle as well?
I'm glad you brought that up because that is our next step.
Okay.
And so we are actually in the process of ordering our books to bring in that collaboration of the instructional team to truly focus and function as a team together. And they are learning about the work being done with coaches, and so they're seeing it in action.
All right, good. All right, second question. You mentioned about that the team, and I think I heard you correctly, that the Cognitive team will come in during this summer's leadership to analyze your data that you're collecting throughout the year. As a district and as your department, what are you doing in terms of analyzing the data? And then the second part of that, I do appreciate that coaching cycle. With the instructional coaches, I think I saw it on the slide that it stated that you're working with teachers who needed support. What data are you collecting to ensure that those teachers are being helped to grow? What is that mark to determine whether this is successful, or is this program actually in place for this year?
So let me try to break up the question and make sure I didn't leave anything out. Okay, so the first part of the question was how are we holding, I guess, instructional coaches accountable for the work that they're doing? Like what data pieces are we pulling? Is that your question?
Yes.
So again, the Elliott can be pulled, the reports can be run daily, monthly, weekly, and instructional coaches are asked to do Elliott observations along with assistant principals and principals, and some reading coaches are. So they're pulling that information to see, because you can pull it by teacher, by grade level, by content area. So that would be a determining factor of where they need to hone in on who needs the most help and support.
Well, well, let me clarify that with the teachers. You stated, I think it reflected on the slide that you're helping the teachers who need the most assistance. So what data is being collected to ensure that teacher growth is indeed happening? I'm looking more specifically at the teacher, not necessarily the student, because ultimately they're going to impact student learning. So if that is the focus of the instructional coaching cycle, how are you assuring that the teachers are growing?
I think that more than anything, if we pull the data, again, from Elliott, I know it's a student observation, but when we're seeing that active learning piece going higher and higher, it's because ultimately, like you said, of what the teachers are doing. So we're going to see more active learning or more high quality teaching happening, and it's going to be reflected indirectly on that Elliott observation. And of course, the teams too in the building level need to come together and have discussion too.
Okay. We're also, thank you, Jamie, I'm sorry. To keep this going, we have this cohort that we started with this year. We'll continue next year, and another big piece that they're adding are all the teacher forums, the coaching forums, so they'll be able to keep track and keep it all documented with that. And then we'll have a cohort with our new coaches that are coming on that will go through this same training that the old coaches went through.
Okay. So, okay. That's all I have for right
Okay,
now.
all right, and I have a couple more questions, but before we go on, Elliott is an acronym. Would you break it down and give us?
Sure. It's kind of long, so let me let me
Right.
pull that up real quick. On the document that I'm sharing with you guys too, it has a sample of it, and it also it's a hold on one second.
And the E stands for what, is what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. It's right here. I can never remember the whole thing. So it's effective learning environments observation tool.
All right. That takes me to my next question, if you will. I know that you said you concentrated on active learning because that was perhaps the lowest area that you saw. Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, all right. And that probably doesn't surprise anyone because we went with, during the COVID years, we went from the face-to-face to the child being in front of a Chromebook. And I'm very happy to see that we should be putting the Chromebooks on a shelf somewhere in the teacher's room so that we can do the active learning. Cooperative learning was in my day too. We had all these wonderful tricks. But I'm wondering if we're still pulling out the Chromebooks and for 4 hours a day the kid is in a Chromebook.
I can't speak to how long each
I'm
teacher.
I'm just saying, I'm not, maybe I'm just talking out loud.
But there is a digital learning environment piece of Elliott.
Right.
Um,
But I'm wondering if we need to rely less on the Chromebooks and more on face-to-face,
Not necessarily.
depending on the class.
Depending on the class, and most of these active learning strategies, when you have the document, take a look at the piece that talks about the digital learning component of it as well. We don't want to take away the device, but, because a lot of these active learning strategies can fit nicely into active learning and collaboration pieces.
Depends on how the Chromebook's being used.
Right, right. Are teachers being encouraged to do more face-to-face? I see a yes and I see a no.
You're encouraged to be more engaging.
Okay,
Right.
more engaging.
More-
All right, more engaging. All right.
Whether it's face-to-face or with the digital
Right.
platform.
You guys know that being on the school board, you get emails, you get telephone calls. Do I know the truth? All I know is to ask questions. I do know that I am receiving a number of phone calls saying that his or her child is spending a great number of hours in a classroom engaging with a Chromebook rather than face-to-face. All I can tell you is that I think we're hearing that. And so as we put our instructional coaches in, perhaps we need to make sure that it's, not, or when the Elliott is being used, it's not a dog and pony show, and that other times we're not being face-to-face. And I'm not being critical, I'm just saying perhaps we need to make sure.
Well, first of all, the Elliott observations they aren't announced.
Good.
So
Ours weren't either.
We have to get
Right.
an actual picture of
Right.
what's occurring with the students.
That's perfect.
And part of our engagement strategies are to re-engage the teachers to spark their ideas and their love for teaching and learning. But we are in a digital age. We can't put the digital resources away completely because our students need to know how to maneuver and use those. And one of the things that we're working on is that we're actually using the digital environment where it's not just a substitution of something. If I could have written it on a piece of paper versus, putting it in a Google Doc that's only my Google Doc, that's not as powerful as if they're working together to gather the research, and then they're working collaboratively in a Google Doc to create a presentation, because you want to move it from just that basic substitution up the ladder. And that's what our innovation specialists do in our schools, is help the teachers implement instructional technology tools that are going to enhance the learning, not take the place of the teaching. And that is one of the goals we're using. We do have some students that are spending time on the Chromebooks, and a lot of that goes back to the teacher shortage.
Yes.
And having alternate ways for them to get the instruction they need and the resources they need. But that is one of the goals, is to move to recruit and retain teachers so that we can move away from having to use so many platforms for the actual instruction.
for example, Apex or
Hmm.
iExcel.
Correct.
May I ask a question?
Sure, yep, that's sure.
I just want to ask one quick question. So I can appreciate all the work that you put into this presentation, and I kind of have been inspired by your passion as well. I wish when I was teaching back in the day that I had all of this. My question is, how will you measure the success of all of that beyond receiving your accreditation? Which you said is pretty much a given. I mean, I see that. How do you measure success?
Ms. Boozer, so that's her question too. So how do you measure success? Well, again, I can't speak for everybody, but I think that it's going to be obvious and evident when you go into a classroom or a school if it's successful. But again, that's just opinion-based. So the accreditation to me is the success factor, but also when teachers feel confident in doing these active learning strategies where it becomes natural to them and not something they have to read from a piece of paper, I think we'll start seeing more and more of that as we keep adding to our toolkit. But it will take some time, and nothing that's worth it happens overnight. So we're going to have to do it step by step and see our needs and do a lot more observing and collaborating and talking and having discussions to see what, again, how they define success. Because that's just opinion of, maybe 2 or 3 that success is, yeah, we are accredited and, we do active learning, but it's going to look different in each school.
Right, and again, I appreciate that, but the whole premise of your presentation was that this is student-centered. So how do you measure the success of the students for all of the financial impact and all of the time impact that we've spent into all of this? How do you measure that for the student?
Yes,
I was gonna
ultimately,
say
it's going to
data.
be student engagement. You're going to see that reflected in the part of the report card rating where the students get the survey of their enjoyment or in participation. And then, of course, you cannot teach the student if you cannot engage them. They have to be engaged, and so that should reflect in the achievement scores.
And I think I heard Monica say the attendance as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear.
That's a great question. Are there any more questions regarding the Cognia or the old SACs? Could I reach back for just a moment on the lesson plans? I mean, we hit the math part. What are your responses from, I know high school teachers. There was one for 28 years. Are they looking at this as just a horrible thing that's been thrown on them? Or are they maybe embracing it or just?
Well, like I said, the last time we met was the day before we were starting spring break. So those groups, some of those groups are actually meeting this afternoon to get feedback from them concerning what they feel they need as a lesson plan in the different content areas. So we bring the department chairs together, and then they go back and get feedback from their schools also to bring forward for recommendations for that.
Do you think they maybe understand that different disciplines need a different format?
Oh, Yeah.
Orchestra is not going to need the same as ELA.
Exactly. There are certain parts that everyone needs, like their standards,
Right.
their success criteria, those kinds of things. But then it will look different, most likely with different disciplines. But we want that feedback from the teacher groups themselves.
Right. Just, this is probably something you and I should have talked about. Would Sumter High maybe come up with the same for ELA for Crestwood and for Lakewood? Do you think they could agree, let's say the ELA teachers?
Right.
Okay, all right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Each content area, they'll be meeting. We got several of them meeting this afternoon. ELA, I think science. Science was yesterday.
We do Tuesdays.
I'm sorry, I got the schedule wrong. But we'll continue to get feedback because it needs to be something that's useful to them.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, thank you. And then, I guess are we to the 3.3?
Yes, ma'am. That was the request to have an overview of Schoology. And so, Dr. Laws, if you'll come forward, who else is assisting you?
Ms. Epps and Ms. LaSalle.
Okay. And this is Ms. Melissa Epps. She is one of the innovations specialists for the district. She's the lead innovation specialist. So, Dr. Laws, if you will go ahead.
All right, good morning. Back in 2015, when we began our One to Global initiative, we used Google Suite, the G Suite, as our quote-unquote LMS at the time. So we were very much in the infancy stages of becoming a technology integrated district. So that was when I first came to the role of the Director for Secondary Instructional Technology. At the time, we had a separate director for the Elementary Instructional Technology. And we did the research. We rolled out over several thousand Chromebooks, and we were starting our One to Global initiative with integrating technology and teaching and learning. And the Google was the platform we used. Then the pandemic came and tested our rigor of our LMS. And the State Department, all across the state, we were challenged with the same thing: is how do we provide students asynchronous and synchronous instruction during a lapse of or in a mitten of face-to-face instruction. And we were given several options from the state, and they were actually going to pay for it. And those options were Canvas, Schoology, Blackboard, and I think at the time it was Safari Montage, but Safari Montage was not actually an LMS, it's a LOR, Library of Resources. And so what I have behind you is we have a team, we had a team and still continue to have a team, that we did the research because we had to select which one of these particular LMSs that we wanted to use. So you can see this is dated, and we're just going to give you the review of what we did back in 2021, 2022. We did a review of our Schoology overview. How do we get to the place where we chose Schoology as our LMS? Now this is impactful because our LMS is directly linked to our e-readiness certification from the state. So we didn't just choose the LMS to operate within the district. We had to have an LMS that the state recognized as a effective platform if we have to go into an asynchronous or synchronous mode, and that is how we are. This is a part of our e-readiness certification that we can use for weather days, and students all have to have Chromebooks. They cannot be without those devices, because if we have to go onto a weather or disruption in school, they need to be able to have access to their Chromebooks so that they can do asynchronous instruction or synchronous instruction, depends on the severity of the event. So on slide 2, you'll see that we had a team that consisted of our coordinator specialists, and we divided into elementary and middle, and we did elementary and middle high to do trainings to make sure all of our teams, all of our teachers and coaches and administrators knew how to use Schoology. We went into in-depth training. And the next slide, okay, all right. If we go to the definition of Schoology, what is Schoology? Schoology is a learning management system. It's very much more comprehensive than Google Suite. And the last slide, when we get there, it will be very illustrative of how they differ. So we wanted to make sure first everyone knew what Schoology was. And that's just a brief definition of what it is. It contains the lesson content, lesson design, and gives students access to those resources. So the next one, Intro into Schoology. That's just pretty much a brief intro into Schoology. And it also, if we have the hot link, is an actual video that will actually give a brief overview of what Schoology is. I don't know whether, for time's sake, we want to do that this morning, but nevertheless, this will be available for anyone with a district email address. We can give you the link and you can watch the video and then give you a brief intro to what Schoology is. Okay? So we get to the next slide, let's talk about why Schoology. Why Schoology? And I will have a team here, left and right, that will help me go through this. We have several resources, and Schoology is at the center as our LMS. We do provide our teacher access to the Safari Montage LOR, library resources. That's also being paid for by the state. Next slide, please. And you will see also Schoology will interact with our Mastery Connect, which will deliver formative assessments, benchmark. All of those can be delivered inside of Schoology. It is the center of our learning management system. Schoology works directly with our Power Teacher, Power School Power Teacher, and it is integrated with Clever. Our students can log on through their Clever credentials. And it also communicates and we use it in conjunction with our Google Suite. Google Suite is still available, but not as our classroom management piece is going to be disabled. And there's a timeline for that because we want all of our teachers to be inside of our LMS, which is Schoology, so that if we, for some reason, have to revert to asynchronous or synchronous, everyone in the district will be abiding by the contract or the MOU that we signed with the state that gave us our E-Ready status. And we have our Go Guardian, which help our teachers to monitor what students are doing when they're on their electronic devices. All of that is managed and centered and communicated throughout Schoology. I'll pause for any question before I go deep into further. If there's no question, we can press on.
Mastery Connect, can you explain that? Or would you? I know you.
Ms.
Would you?
Carnes? She's
Mastery Connect.
Mastery Connect is actually our district's assessment management system. It's where we house our common assessments across the district. Teachers also have the ability to make formative assessments for their class. And then it collects the data, and the big purpose is to monitor growth.
Such as MAP. So is that where MAP is?
No, MAP is,
That's
And-
by the company.
right, that's NWEA, and that's an interim assessment
Right.
that we are required to give 3 times a year, but we also use that to monitor growth as well.
Right. So what would, give me an example of what might be in Mastery Connect? What other-
Well, for example, with my work with ELA, elementary ELA, we have a new curriculum this year.
Yes.
So at the end of each unit, we have a unit assessment that we do a check on what was taught the last 5 weeks. That is housed in Mastery Connect. The students go to Mastery Connect, get that, and then we have the scores. So now at the end of the year, from the district level, I'm going to pull those reports and see if we have any spots in our curriculum that we need to build up. Say if there's a specific indicator that's weak across the district. And that might not necessarily be a teacher, it might be the curriculum and the resources we're giving them
Right.
in order to address that. So one way that we can use that. We're working with our K through 2 teachers to use Mastery Connect as a way to track student performance and complete their standards-based report cards. So we have many uses for it.
Okay, and who would make those formative assessments that you have in Mastery Connect?
For the most part, our content people, we put those together. We have 2 item banks in Mastery Connect with assessment items that are aligned to our standards. So
Now,
we
when-
go in and review those, and then we build the assessment using those.
So when you say our people,
Our content area people, myself for ELA,
I see.
Monica.
It's they're district-made formative assessments.
For the most part, yes, ma'am.
I got you.
Mhm.
All right.
And then we also have the ability to use our curriculum materials. If we mark them private to our district, it's not copywriting. So for example, my ELA unit tests, I've taken the questions from the curriculum and recreated them in Mastery Connect so that we could deliver them to everybody at one time.
And so the classroom teacher is giving a test that he has not created, that's been created by the district in addition to math.
Mhm.
But the ones you're talking about are probably given after every unit?
Right, well, we do them after every unit. We do small, maybe 5 question assessments weekly as a checkup for that week. There's different ways we could use it, but the difference between MAP and Mastery Connect is Mastery Connect is formative, and those are given more often to drive your daily and your weekly instruction. MAP is an interim where we have basically benchmarks set at this time of the school
Right.
year,
Right.
achievement norms, your students should be around, that level.
So are parents given the results of the Mastery Connect, the formative assessments that have been created by the district? So if I'm a mom, a 4th grader, will I know how my little girl did on that end of unit test?
I'm not going to be able to say yes across the board because I can't speak for what's happening in the schools, but Mastery Connect does have a progress report that shows all the assessments that were given for a specific standard and what the student's score was. And Mastery Connect also has a parent portal, so parents could go in there and see what their students are doing.
Even though they could, as a mom, I'm working full-time at Shaw, how would I know to ask that question?
The teachers in the school should really be communicating that when they meet with the parents about how they're collecting the data to get their student scores.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And one of the great advantage of Mastery Connect is for those new teachers who may not be as skilled in creating their assessments, they can go into the item bank and get high-quality questions that they can use to be informed on how well their students are doing. And once again, as Ms. Carnes said, the MAP benchmark is just that for ELA, for reading and math. It is a benchmark for us to monitor growth throughout the year.
Also with Master Connect, I notice a lot of the secondary teachers, they're using Master Connect as a checkpoint to guide them for the instructions for the next day, because they need to know, do they need to review from where they left off or move on to the next level. So teachers are using Master Connect to build teacher-made assessments, 1 or 2 questions, just to see how the students has mastered the skill for the day.
I'm sorry to ask so many questions, but I'm looking at it through a parent's viewpoint, although I'm not a grandchildren. I don't remember, when I was teaching, it wasn't that long ago, I don't remember having access to that, or my children's teachers having access to that. So when did we develop Mastery Connect?
Mastery Connect is actually a fairly new system and company. I believe maybe 2013, 2014.
You know, I'm wondering, are we sending out information? I mean, I think we assume everybody knows these things, but if you're not in the school business, you know, I'm not sure everybody understands these things. I wonder if we are actually sharing through some kind of communication enough of this information to parents in the community. But,
We do have a little piece on that on our district website, which we could probably add more to at this point since we've been using it for so many years. But there is a page on our website that talks about our use of Mastery Connect.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so if we go to the next slide, let's see, purposeful planning. So when we started the integration into Schoology, we didn't just select it and then the next week or 2 or 3, we started using it. We went into a gradual release process where we scheduled training in phase 1 and 2 to make sure that we provided the effective support that teachers needed prior to using Schoology in the fall of that year. So on the next slide, we phase 1, we did Schoology introduction, just giving an overview, awareness of what Schoology was. You can see the date is listed there. District PD Day on March 17th of 2021 is where we conducted that particular overview and training. And then phase 2, we split it up into elementary and middle and high training. And you can see the dates that we conducted that training where we broke it down into multiple sessions. And we had several of our coordinators and our specialists. All of our coordinators and all of our specialists are trained in how to effectively use Schoology, and they served as the facilitators for the training. And this was done on those 4 dates, as you can see, for elementary. And then you have the middle, high, secondary dates that are also listed there. And we provided that initial training as well as our follow-up trainings to our teachers from 2020, through the month of April. Okay? Purposeful planning, phase 3, training at the school level. So we have our optional summer training that were offered for elementary. And there's a link, if you can click on that, Ms. Scott. Okay. I can't see that.
I'll chime in. You want to talk, Melissa? All right, so the school level training for Schoology 101 was not, again, just thrown at the teachers like a drink from the fire hydrant. It was broken up into bite-sized chunks so they could actually process. Every single time that we did a training, we recorded it and gave access to anybody who was interested to see the recording, as well as the slide deck. Going back to the train the trainer model, we actually asked building leaders to give us the names of those they think would be great trainers for Schoology to take it back to their school. During that time, we actually developed a guide for the train the trainer. So for session 1 that they were giving back to their staff, they had to include, A through D parts. And then the next time they did part 2, and they were able to space it out the way that would fit the needs of their schools and their teachers. So on this document here, if you wanted to see the recordings and see the train the trainer guide that we provided for the trainers, again, given that these were the people that the administrators told us to train that would be responsible for taking it back. We at the time had 5 instructional technology specialists, and 5 instructional technology specialists could not possibly train every single teacher. So we offered multiple ways that the teachers could get the information. And again, we started with the train the trainer.
And scroll down and you can see all of the links. Is this the one we also have the, go ahead, sorry.
When was this started?
In 2021.
2021.
Okay.
We have been using it mid and post. Schoology have been used in the middle of the pandemic and after the pandemic. We are still using Schoology.
But before then,
We were using Google.
and did the teachers know how to use Google?
Yes, ma'am. We did the same process 5 years ago. Went through about once again, we went through the whole G Suite, which is Google Suite, which all of the pieces, and we still use portions of Google, we just don't use Google Classroom as our LMS. It's like the entry level, baby level, and the Schoology is a whole lot more comprehensive.
So with this, you're training more teachers or less? Because I was under this understanding that our teachers, when we started the pandemic or just before, they weren't prepared, that they didn't have or knowledge of Google or
So yeah,
Chromebooks or anything of that nature.
yes, ma'am.
From the parents now,
Mhm.
that was one of the concerns they had about this district, that teachers were not prepared to do the work from this perspective.
I would say this, we provided the training, but sometimes folks don't know the urgency of that training until it became an emergency. So were they all at the same level of efficacy at the time of the pandemic? No. But did they all have the resources that we provided since 2015? They're all, now we didn't at the time had a system where the students took the Chromebooks home, but as part of being E-ready, we had to let the students take the Chromebooks home in order to be E-ready certified. But as far as being trained how to do training synchronously or asynchronously, that wasn't necessarily at its best at the initial part of the pandemic, but they had the resources through Google Classroom.
So when you changed over to this process, how are we doing relative to the training of these teachers?
So
I do understand there were some of your better read teachers didn't know how to use this.
So we have our training still ongoing because we have new teachers that come in. So we have like beginners, intermediate, and advanced support that we still offer for Schoology. And we provide that refresher every year. And we have 5 innovation specialists that provide the support within the school as well as the instructional coaches. So the migration from Google to Schoology has been a little bit intermittent because some folks have not released the Google to move over because there's another learning curve. But the support is there, and we've been supporting it for the last 2 years in preparation of moving to just Schoology. And we still have the support. And any teacher can request additional support if they feel that they're having some struggle with using Schoology. We have innovation specialists who can assist them one-on-one in how to get to where they, not just watch the video, but we can actually come out and provide them the support. So as far as our district is now, we are an E-ready district. That means we had, back in 2015, 17,000 Chromebooks, and I don't know how many we have now, but when I was responsible for that, we had 17,000 Chromebooks, and that means every student had access to the one-on-one device. And so if we were to have an interruption in school, we're much better prepared to provide synchronous and asynchronous instruction to students.
I'm glad to hear that.
May I ask a question very quickly? So you mentioned you have 5 technology interventionists, is that what they're called? Is that enough?
No, ma'am. I can quickly answer that. They're behind me. No, ma'am. We have 5 for 25 schools, yes.
So that, I mean, that's, to me, that's, if we have that many Chromebooks and we have X number of teachers who are now being required to move from one platform to another, yes, you're doing the training and applaud that. But 5 people to support that, that's.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
And I like
And some of those are paid through ESSER funds that will be ending
Phasing out.
September 2024.
I'd like to just say, we were invited to a meeting with a media specialist, and some of the burdens have fallen on them. For example, if a child's Chromebook doesn't work, they bring it to the media specialist, and they're saying they don't have time to be a media specialist. That's not why they went to school. They didn't go to school to repair Chromebooks. So, just for information, you probably already know that.
Yeah.
but-
That falls under the IT department, but yes, we've heard that expression. So we have constantly available resources for our teachers for Schoology. It is more comprehensive, but we can embed video, we can embed the resources. As you have heard, even from our district level, we use Schoology for our departments. I have one for CTE, we have one for math, elementary, ELA. We use Schoology also to provide content to our teachers. It is our LMS for our district, and it is much more in the state. Everyone from the different districts, some use Canvas and some use Schoology as their LMS. The majority in the state are using either Canvas or Schoology.
Could I ask another question, please? Students have to know how to use Schoology, is that correct?
Yes,
All right. We're hearing that some students pick it up quickly, and some students are having a great deal of difficulty, and that's as far as I want to take that. But they're saying that those students their grades are suffering because they could use Google Classroom easier, but their skills with Schoology is showing up in their achievement because those students cannot do it well.
well, the LMS is just the delivery of the resources, it's not the teacher. And so I could not, other than really our kids catch on, our kids sometimes have to tell some of the adults how to use Schoology because it's not difficult to use. It's just complex. When we say more comprehensive, it's more available resources. It's not complex to use. And as far as between Google or Schoology, there will be any learning loss there because it's just where you house the resources and the access of the resources and the material. The actual instructions will come from the teacher.
And Dr. McLeod, we discussed that, and you know what I've shared with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Accessibility.
Dr. Laws, could you just speak to the accessibility for our special needs students?
Yes.
Well, Schoology does provide accessibility to our students and teachers. Teachers are able to do differentiated lessons for your students. They tailor for the needs of the individual students. The links are housed there. You can change the look of it. There's an elementary experience of Schoology, so it's more friendlier for elementary students and the feel for your high school students. And to address the needs of students, innovation specialists, we provide supports for students as well. We cycle through classrooms to make sure students know how to assess Schoology and how to submit assignments. And we also go work with our parent nights. We provide training for parents to make sure parents know what their students are using and how to use Schoology to submit their assignments and how to review the work that their students are doing throughout the day. When parents assess it, they only get to see their kids' work and what the teacher posts. So accessibility for everyone. On the accessibility part, it has the immersive reader where it will read to them. So you can make the font size larger for the students. It's a plethora of accessibility that we can use for the students. And if a teacher's having problems accessing that, we will go in and assist them on how to use those accessibilities with their students.
Thank you.
And before we conclude, with our last slide, any additional comment from the innovation specialist?
Maybe the pass-back feature with PowerSchool.
Come on. I got a team.
Good morning. My name is Tavish Vanskoik. I'm an instructional innovation specialist. One other feature that I think Schoology has over Google Classroom is the ability to pass grades from Schoology to PowerSchool. All that takes is a setup in the beginning of the year, and then after that, it's automatic. So that's one of the main features that I think teachers need to understand, is that it's going to save them a lot of time with that pass-back feature.
Let me ask you this. Is the teacher able to say, write comments regarding that grade? And-
Yes.
And that teacher, he would use that with Schoology? Or does he or she need to do it straight with the
Our
system?
teacher.
Yeah.
All the comments can carry over from Schoology to PowerSchool. In fact, I don't think it was mentioned yet, but PowerSchool owns Schoology. So that is a big deal.
And the thing is, if they create the grade in PowerSchool, then it's not going to show up in Schoology. But if they do it in Schoology, it will show up in PowerSchool. So they got to make sure.
All right, repeat that to me.
So if they do the work, or they put the information in Schoology, it will upload to PowerSchool
And the comments.
and the comments. As long as they do it in Schoology, it will upload. But they cannot do it in Power Teacher and then come back to Schoology.
That's important.
Yeah, but we went through that learning curve early, so.
All right.
Anyone else from the team?
Oh, I'll talk. So I'm Krista Jennings, and I work mostly with elementary. So I have a lot of schools that have asked me to step in for the littles, like littles, kindergartners. And they have found it really easy for our kindergartners to access Schoology once they've reached that training, because they have it organized in the elementary experience. So the teacher can say, go into the star, and the kids will automatically click on the star, and they can go and do something like, I'm going to do my morning work, so I can go and learn my alphabet and things like that. So the kids are learning as early as kindergarten how to access this, and they don't have a problem once they start playing. And I actually think kindergartner does it better than some of the fifth graders, because they enjoy it. And so once they start at that level, it carries right up, and it's a smooth transition. We've been working with all the grade levels to use it. So kindergartners use it, and mostly when kindergartners use it, it is for morning activities. The teacher has it on the board, but the kids can access it right at their computer so that they can have that individualized instruction. And so that we feel is really important, that kids have that opportunity to do their hands-on right there. And then they have their blocks and things at their desk so that they can mirror and practice with things. So it really works well with them. And in terms of grades, you can flag a missing assignment so that parents know right away that, hey, my kid did not submit this, and we need to turn that in. So it makes it easier for parents to keep track of what assignments their child needs to complete through those little flags that they put on there. So it really helps our parents too.
Okay, do parents need some training in receiving some of this information through Schoology?
We've had, as Melissa said, we've had parent nights where we go
I
and we
know,
talk to parents.
I know, we have 14,000 kids.
Yeah, and I understand
Yeah,
that. And definitely we can be continuing to do more, and offering that. As parents get more familiar with it, we will most likely have more trainings where our schools call us in and say, hey, can you come out for parent night? I know ours do.
right. And thank you for telling me about the kindergarten. May I just say to you guys, Dr. McLeod knows some information that probably there are some people who still need some help and some training. And I'm sure she'll share with you.
Ms. Disney, can I say one more thing about
Sure.
the parents?
Uh-huh.
One really great feature about Schoology versus Google Classroom is that because PowerSchool owns Schoology, they talk to each other.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the year, if a teacher gives a student one access code, when the parent puts that into Schoology, they have access to all of the different courses. Whereas in Google Classroom, they need an individual code per classroom created by the teacher. So it kind of syncs all together, so the parents can see all the grades for all the class in all one place. They can see all the assignments, all of the updates from the teachers, all with one access point.
Let me ask you, nobody needs more work, particularly people who work in this district. But sometimes when we send things out to parents, is it possible to send out an instruction sheet? You have that, right?
So we do have that, and we actually have given copies to all the schools that they could use as a model. Then it says, dear parent, we're using Schoology. It's simple, it's easy. Here are the 3 simple steps to log in to connect with your child. We give that to the schools at the beginning of the year. We say we highly recommend that you put this out to your parents immediately. We have contact information with the innovation specialist name on there, along with the school contact. So that is being put out to the parents, with that access code. We also developed, and I don't know if I
Now,
have it
is it
with
on the
me.
website too?
It should be, yes, and again, I have to look. It was, yes. And then we also put together a parent Schoology guide, and this was posted on the website
Okay.
with the letters from individual schools.
Okay.
So it was there at the start of the use of Schoology. I don't know if since it's been taken down, but it is created. We've had this for a while now. Again, it's just the parents' simple steps, the must-knows. Not the need-to-knows, but the must-knows to be successful with it.
On behalf of military families who move in and out of the district all the time, I would request that that be made more readily available somewhere, somehow. Military parents don't like to say, I don't know, or to ask questions, or to admit that they need help. But if it's something that they can go to that district webpage and click on something, they'll do that in a heartbeat. Thank you.
And our last slide shows the Schoology versus Google Classroom. It's the next one, last one. Shoot. But, and basically, you will see in the center, can you, one of y'all go and hit that next screen for me? In the center, it shows the things that both are capable of doing, and then just hit the arrow, I think it's.
It's the Google slide at the top.
Yeah, there we go. Hit the next one. There we go. Yes, that's it. So it gives you kind of a brief overview of, if you look to the right, you'll see blue, that's Schoology. That's all of the functions of Schoology. And then to the right, we have the kind of rust color. Those are the things that Google Classroom performs. And
This
then
is what I'm hearing. I can't tell you how many teachers contacted me to say that.
yeah. Yeah, it is, the fact that which one are you talking about? The whole list?
Simpler, yeah, probably the whole list.
Mhm.
But that they were saying it was simpler for students, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Simpler.
But the simple adult will not work for us is when it comes to our e-readiness status. So we have to be able to provide high quality learning management when it comes to our e-learning readiness status. And that's a district initiative that we use every year whenever we have increment. We don't have to make up. And the reason why the state is paying for only those 3 is because they recognize those 3, even though we don't use Blackboard because it's more college-based. I don't even think college uses it as much. Is because they're the ones who vet this as being the one, and they are paying for it. I was told by Dr. McLeod, they're renewing that subscription post the pandemic. And we have been using them, and it is because of the comprehensiveness of it. So anything that requires more is not as simple, but with simple, you can't have all the functionality. And once again, Power School owns Schoology. It is, yeah, so we will work with anyone who have anxieties and have any kind of challenge that they're working with. We provide still our intermediate, our beginners, intermediate, and advanced support. But as we press to provide the best quality service to students, we certainly don't want to be going backwards. We want to continue to go forward. And once again, it's not that is hard to use, it's just that it has less features. It can be friendly, user-friendly. Schoology is. And by far, the innovation specialists may respond. The elementary and middle schools are heavily using Schoology. Sometimes with my secondary, I'm secondary too in my history, we're slow to take that change again. But we'll get them there.
The team is also to assist those that are a little slow with change, are putting together some additional supports and rollouts to help those teachers that are concerned they're going to lose any of their content that's within Google Classroom, to assist them in loading over to Schoology so they won't have to remake things.
There was an art teacher, an excellent one, who wants to still keep something from Google to use in the classroom. So as long as somebody would help her.
Google's not going to, it's housed in the Google Drive. It's just Google Classroom that is not going to be used as the LMS. So everything housed in the Google Drive, the teacher will still have access to. Yes, sir.
Just to kind of make it a little easier to understand, if you think of Schoology and Google Classroom as Facebook versus MySpace, they both do the same thing. It's just some people are used to using MySpace and didn't want to switch over to Facebook. But as far as the children are concerned, it's social media. So if you can utilize any of those platforms, you can utilize Schoology or Google Classroom. But Schoology does have a lot more functionalities, as Dr. Law said. It's the Facebook versus the old MySpace. And so it's just the idea of change that some of the teachers are resisting, and they just have to be urged, and ultimately we all have to be held accountable to make the switch, is what it amounts to.
And they have our phone numbers, so.
And we'll continue to work with them in this process, but the fact that the state has vetted these before they offered, and this is larger than a penny that they're investing for the districts to be able to use these learning management systems. And quite frankly, we were way behind the ball as a state in securing these. And of course, we never envisioned what occurred. And even though training had been going on for several years, a lot of people in the classrooms didn't feel that was anything like that was ever going to happen. So yeah, I'm getting this training, but I'm still going to do it the way I've normally done it because I feel I'm getting results. And then when we went home Friday, March 13th, Friday the 13th, and by Monday morning we were shut down, then there was, an immediate need due to emergency, and it was difficult for some teachers, whereas others were like, they've been using it, so they were very comfortable with it. So it's a transition process, but we need to be consistent across the school district. I do get calls from parents, like I've got one teacher, one of my kids, the teacher's using Google Classroom, the other, and they mention I have to have all these codes, whereas in another school they have a child that's using Schoology and they can easily get in with the one code. So that's one of the things we need consistency with. So we'll continue the transition for it, and we'll address concerns the teacher has and be there beside them to support them and their students if their students need assistance.
Any questions? y'all were so informative, very, I just wish everybody could have heard what we heard today. But we'll do our best to share it.
And we will continue to share also. But now, you know, if you find the tree with dollar bills on it, we do need some more innovation specialists. I think that
Well, I
that
can
would be
certainly-
fabulous.
I can certainly mail that one. Well, thank you very much, and do we have to have a motion to adjourn? All right, is there a motion to adjourn? All right,
I'll second it.
and you're seconded, and we are now adjourned. Thank you.